Welcome everyone to the ESL Final of Glasgow EUDC 2024. We are very happy to firstly invite the judges to enter the chamber.
All right. Welcome everyone to the ESL Grand Finals of Glasgow EUDC 2024. So besides me, the panel will consist of Alishba, Andrew, Anna, Emma, Rumen, and Uday. And now to invite the teams.
Yes.
Can I go on? Go on. Okay. So, in opening government, we have Copenhagen A. In opening opposition, we have Tel Aviv A. Closing government, we have LSEB.
It goes against what our country is funding. Block the barricade until Palestine is free. Block the barricade until Palestine is free. When I was 7, I learned a lesson from Cuban Easy E.
And in closing opposition, we have Zagreb A. So, I'd like to wish the best of luck to all 4 teams, and now to invite one of the CAs to announce the motion.
The motion for the ESL Final of Glasgow EUDC 2024 reads, "This House regrets the narrative that dying for romantic love is justified."
Okay. Needless to say, this is the first time a Danish team has ever been in any type of final, so I'm going to take 30 seconds to say something sappy first, and then I promise I will debate. To all the people before me who made this moment possible, I'm aware that I stand on the shoulders of a strong and amazing community. To the Danish circuit, I owe you guys everything. To Laura, my partner and my rock, thank you for being an unbelievable powerhouse, a continual inspiration, and most of all, a friend. To the European debate community and the conveners and CAs of this Euro, thank you. You guys are the real champs. You make all of this happen. To all those who will come after me, know that this moment is possible. Be courageous, kind, and confident, and come to Copenhagen EUDC next year. With that, my speech will start in 3, 2, 1. Dying for one person is a selfish and misunderstood act and the ultimate infliction of pain on all other people in your life. You need to go on living for those you have left. That is how we take this debate from OG. Two very simple things that will help us take it. Firstly, why this narrative is so incredibly harmful, and secondly, why the comparative is much, much better. Briefly, some clarifications. We think this narrative manifests via movies, TVs, societal discourse, etc. We all know what a narrative debate is. I think this debate is about fringe cases. Most likely, the average person won't be in this situation, but it is about those people who will be, those people who do choose to make this sacrifice, why that is wrong. Secondly, I want to make it very clear that this narrative makes dying for romantic love seem like a legit option. This is something that you opt into in very dramatic moments, etc. You make the ultimate sacrifice. You go in front of the car instead of them. You let them have the door so that they don't die on the Titanic, etc. The comparative here is, I want to make it clear, you do not die a hero. This is not war, but dying for one individual person you love. It's a one-on-one trade-off. I'm going to prove to you why this is terrible. No. Why is this narrative then incredibly harmful? 5 structural reasons. Firstly, love is incredibly temporary and death is forever. Even if this is good, even if this is love, it can be bad love. It can be unrequited love. It can be toxic love. It can be a love that wouldn't last. All of these are structural reasons for why maybe this is not the ultimate thing to kill yourself for. Love is not the best thing you have. Romantic love is not the best thing you have in life. B, it can be a new love. You don't know how this can pan out. It will require significant analysis from opposition to prove why this is worth it in the long run. It can be a new love like Jack on the Titanic, who's known Rose for 3 days? That means it can change fast. They probably wouldn't be together when they got back on shore. And I'm sorry to say it, but that death was meaningless. That he made the forever sacrifice, and it most likely is not going to be worth it in the long run. Secondly, the people that you leave behind who love you. Even if this is good love, if this is perfect love, if this is what gives your life meaning, if this is your life partner, you will give everyone else immeasurable grief. Because I guarantee all of you, there is more than one person in life who loves you. Most of you have friends and families who care about you deeply. Maybe you have a debate community or a debate partner who'd be incredibly sad because they'd have to do the next major alone with a less good person. You're going to give them immeasurable grief. You're going to give the person whom you sacrifice your life for immeasurable guilt forever because they will have survivorship bias. They will never feel like their life was worth it. They'll forever struggle for that. B, the person who then lives on, the person you gave your life for, is now stuck between honoring you, spending every single moment of their life trying to make your sacrifice worth it, and moving on. Probably they're most likely better off moving on because they likely have a long life to live ahead of them, but they're going to feel guilty about that every day of their life because they know that as soon as they start loving someone else, they're not honoring you anymore. You take immense agency away from them. Thirdly then, your family. A, they will see you die for someone that you have loved shorter. I guarantee, I'll take you in a second, that your friends and family have probably been there for you longer, and they will now see you die for someone you've known for maybe 2 years, maybe 3 days, who knows. B, your family most likely sustained you longer, they most likely depend on you more. Kids is the worst imaginable case here. If you have children who will have to go on with a parent who's died for this. You can never repay them, you can never give them anything back, you can never be there to support them again. They will never get to hold your hand because in this moment you made the ultimate sacrifice. C, you're going to cause immense suffering to all these people. I'll take you later. Fourthly, because love just makes you crazy and irrational. A, you're chemically unstable. I don't study psychology, but I think we've all felt it. When we're in love, we're silly, we do stupid things, we're irrational. And the stupidest thing you've done for love probably wasn't very smart. If the stupidest thing you do for love is to give up your life, that is probably incredibly stupid too. B, this is just in a dramatic moment. You are paralyzed by fear, so there's an inherent loss of agency there too, because this means that you cannot comprehend the suffering that you will give other people, the grief that you will cause them at this moment. This is why this narrative existing in society specifically is so harmful, because in desperate moments, it compels you to fall back on cliches. You wrongly think you die a hero. I said I'll take you later. You wrongly think you die a hero. In this reality, you destroy more lives than your own. Fifthly, because you can never process self-sacrifice in any rational way. When you die, there is nothing. None of us can cognitively imagine the nothingness there is after death. It is so hard that you can never process all of it. In this dramatic moment, you make the wrong decision, you ruin the life of your lover, you ruin the lives of your friends and family, and you do it at a moment where you have limited agency. Before moving into the comparative, I will take a POI from closing.
We all know that moment when you jump in front of a car to save somebody, you think of your wife, your children, your parents, and the societal narratives imprinted on you by movies. Is that correct?
I'm sorry, I didn't hear the last part.
Is that correct?
I don't think that you see all these things flash before your life. I think that it's a split-second decision, and I think it's the wrong one, and I think you need to engage with all the suffering that I've just proven that you caused. Then, why is the comparative significantly better on your side? Even if you let the other person die at this dramatic moment, why is this more worth it? 3 structural reasons. Firstly, because this active choice is what causes harm. As soon as you opt into it, that's where the problem begins. A, everyone else in your life will feel deprioritized. If my sister died for her boyfriend, I would never ever be able to comprehend why she chose him over me, why she caused me this much grief and suffering. I would forever feel so sad and betrayed. You will always be sad that they didn't choose to live for you. Why was your love not enough for them? Secondly, even if this is glorified because even if this death is glorified because we have this narrative, people will still be sad and angry, etc. Because a single narrative is not enough to stop it. Mothers whose sons die in war are still incredibly sad, even if we tell people that this is an even more glorified death because they died for more people or whatever. That doesn't take away all the harmful feelings. That doesn't take away the meaninglessness you feel now. I think on their side of the house, it becomes comparatively harder to process this grief. A, because you cannot talk openly about these complicated feelings because this narrative means that society just gives you less room to talk about it. And B, because you feel pressured by this narrative to support this death, so you have all this internal conflict, you feel like a bad person, etc., adding to the cognitive dissonance that I have already analyzed. Thirdly, I think on our side of the house, we're just able to place blame better. The comparative on our side of the house is that you get to blame anything else. Bad luck, destiny, and circumstance. God sent the car. God chose to bring her home. There's no personal blame here. There's no opting in of agency, ruining someone's life. I think you're more able to process grief in group. You're with your whole family and the family of your lover. I beg of you, panel, do not die for your loved ones. Live for them. Carry their memory with you and make their lives proud.
end the war, release the hostages, schedule an immediate Israeli election. Look, generally when we analyze narratives, we need to do more than saying, look, the word die is in the motion, therefore people will die. What we're actually going to show you is why people aren't likely to die, why saying there are fringe cases where people die isn't actually analysis, and prove to you why it causes people to enter into deeper and much better romantic relationships. Let's start directly answering what we get from OG. Look, we don't see people killing themselves. Like, even their examples, like, how many times was there a bullet and then you were with your spouse and you jumped in front of that bullet? Like, it didn't happen to me with my spouse. Maybe it will happen, but I really don't think that it's likely. Secondly, look, I don't understand how this works. People, and so many people, see Romeo and Juliet every year, and we don't see any spike in people killing themselves because of that. Yes, there are fringe cases when some people kill themselves because of love. We don't think that this has anything to do with that. We think that these people, in most of these cases, don't have any other friends, have huge mental issues that are other than that, and many times are hopeless because of other things in life. But notice, people kill themselves all the time because they're unemployed. There is no narrative whatsoever of unemployed people killing themselves, and still they do it, unfortunately. We think that this narrative has nothing to do with people killing themselves or being in front of a bullet. Okay, look, why is this super extreme to talk about death? Because we have so many other things that push us against dying in such cases. Religion, just natural will to actually live, the films and things like that.
Point.
We think that in most cases, no, later. We think that in most cases, what you see is something that proves to you that you want to sacrifice more for good relationship. Yes, you see in many things, films, things that are extreme. When you see people like climbing the Everest, that doesn't mean that you climb the Everest. You say, I want to get and do these challenges. That means that they inspire you. You think that this is the likely effect of that thing. This means that you're more likely to think that part of romantic relationship means sacrifice. And notice, and this is crucial, it is a symmetric sacrifice. It means that it's both the man or the woman, or men and men and woman and woman, and both sides of the house. That means that sometimes you have to harm yourself in order to be in a better place. You need to move to another country to be your girlfriend if she's studying somewhere else. You need to actually change jobs sometimes. You need to care for the kids more because someone else, because your spouse also wants to do something. This is what we're actually talking about in this debate. Two last important points of framing. Firstly, romantic love was invented in the 19th century. We would think we're talking about something like that. If they talk to us about the Romans or anything, good luck. Secondly, we think that the emphasis, and this is important, is on love, not marriage. Not every marriage is in love, but we think that love can result in marriage, and that is what we're talking about in this debate, also in other relationships. Let's talk about why it helps specifically women, and let's firstly start with the counterfactual narrative. Because we think that, as we've already said, this is a symmetric narrative. On their side of the house, already, we have men controlling the narrative and the incentives and the media, etc., etc. Why is it crucial? Because other narratives are specifically helping men and males. When we're talking about, for example, the faithful marriage and how the society views women that are unfaithful versus men that are unfaithful, making men having much more ability to do what they want. When they say that women need to care for the children, while the man doesn't have to sacrifice his jobs and things like that. All of these things also create on our side of the house. But on our side of the house, there is a little push against that. We think that, yes, part of the freedoms that women have today come from this narrative. Yes, we're not in a perfect world, but it is much, much better because of that. Let's understand what that means. That means that, as a woman, I understand that a romantic love means that the other side also sacrifices for me. That means it is not real romantic love if there isn't sacrifice on the other side. That means if he tells me I need to be with the children all the time, something is not right. Then it is not the romantic love that I deserve to be in, because it is a symmetric narrative. That means that when he tells me that, no, I cannot work anyway, and there is nothing I can choose, this means that there is no sacrifice on their side of the house. That means that there is more ability and more likelihood that women understand that they should have a decision, that a real love is something else, that they can tell you that it's love, but if he doesn't sacrifice everything, it means that it is not real love. Notice, the impact here is twofold. Firstly, inside the relationships, you're actually likely to be in a better place because the man is also more pressured to do that because he also sees it and feels that he has some obligation. But secondly, the decision to get into relationship in the first place is better because you're more likely to say, part of this romantic love is the sacrifice. If he doesn't sacrifice, I'm less likely to be with that. That means people who sacrifice in the first place are more likely to be better lovers because that means that they want it to succeed. That means that they have a more connection, that they feel emotionally that it's okay for them to harm themselves a bit because they care so much. That means it's more likely to last. That means it's more likely that they will not force their woman, for example, to have sex with them because that's what they think. That means that the marriage will not be so cursed and bad that they need to lie to their children so many years that it's good. That means that they don't divorce when the children are 10 and the children suffer. Look, yes, it happens on both sides, but in our side it happens less, and the extent is crucial in these cases. Before I move on, I will get second house.
This case is essentially, sexism is gonna happen anyways, but at least now you realize your wife's life is worth it. If you don't explain why men are gonna internalize the narrative in which you describe, there is no OO case at all.
We explained why we internalize the narrative. We think that already there is also an assumption that there is some internalization coming from your OG and themselves, just they assume the most extreme cases and not the real cases that there are. Women internalize this because they read the books, because they read all of these things that we were talking about, and it's enough for us men to internalize these things. Without any internalization, no impact happens anyway. Look, lastly, it's important to note, we're okay even with people sacrificing their career and other things for romantic love. Why is romantic love just the most important thing in the debate and logically superior to anything else coming in the debate? Look, we think that it depends in our career and our children on returning home and being with the people we love, on telling them what happened in work, on asking them how it is, on feeling safe with them. Yes, it can happen with friends, but not in the same extent that you know that no matter what you return, he will be there for you, that you're his one and he needs to be there for you. All of these things don't happen on their side. But moreover, children, the need to lie to the children for years that you love someone when you don't, the feeling of guilt when you don't feel that you gave the children much and the other side also didn't because he didn't sacrifice for you, is the thing that makes you harder and makes it harder for you to plan anything in your life whatsoever. So it means that once we get better love, we also unlock any other impact coming from our life. For all of these reasons, we call you to oppose.
I'm also going to start with some sappy notes. I'll try to make it fast. This is my last ever debate speech at any EUDC, and I'm really happy it's this one. But first and foremost, like Martha said, which we should have coordinated, thank you to the Danish debate community for always supporting me, believing in me, letting me live out my crazy dreams. To everyone who's taught me and to those who continue to teach next to me, thank you. To all people of the old gang, mentioned and non-mentioned, Jonas for your talented coaching, Kai for taking me so incredibly far, Christian for being my constant rock. To the new and future generations of Danish debate, thank you for trusting us still, for keeping us motivated and helping us slowly pass the torch. To everyone in the delegation that we brought to this comp, your cheers have been everything. Like Martha also thanked the international community, this has meant a lot to us. Thank you for welcoming us. We've never been the oldest or the largest circuit, so your focus and commitment to inclusion is everything. Your willingness to share your knowledge is the only reason we could ever go so far. Thank you to everyone who sparred with me, given us feedback, beaten me. Thank you to all the international debate friends and family. You know who you are. I hope the Danish story will resonate with smaller communities. We'll always be there for you like you were there for us. It's a huge honor to be here. It's going to be an even bigger honor to host you next year. And lastly, it's just personally thank yous. My sibling, my parents. Thank you everyone who supported me, for trying to understand what BP is. To my boyfriend who never once complained that I'm not home, ever. We love you all very much. And to Martha, for this insane ride. Thank you for trusting me when I said you were the born first speaker, case in point. And thank you for all the slays. Wherever you go next, I'm there for you.
Now let's talk about OO. Let's try to debate the motion that the CA set and not some random ass motion that OO cocked up in the 15 minutes of prep. Because I want to note very clearly here, if the debate was about some sort of sacrifice, that would have been the motion. It would have been sacrificing everything for the people you love, sacrificing a lot for people you love even. That's not the debate we're having. I think that's clear to the panel, clear to the CA's team, clear to the audience, just not clear to OO. What is it, though, that is still the problem with the rebuttals, right? They say, we have to prove that people die. That's not necessarily like criticizing Martha's analysis. I think a lot of it is still actually standing. In the way that we explain to you that you have more proximate dependencies, more proximate responsibility towards the people who are closest to you, to the majority of your relations, rather than the singular relation, that is a point at which we tell you you have to weigh those sacrifices higher. And the way that you should prioritize that internally, whether or not you're dying or not, is always to focus more on those people rather than that one person you love. None of the structural reasons that Martha give to you are answered. They just try to outframe it by squirreling, by lying to you, and you're better than that, I know that. What do they actually try to bring you? Probably later. What do they actually bring you, right? First of all, they tell you it's better for women. This is premised on the idea that these sacrifices are going to be symmetrical or offsetting some sort of patriarchal structure. It is premised on that, but it is not proven. There is no link, there is no analysis, and this is the hardest thing to rebut when no one tries to even prove it, because what am I actually going to attack then, right? But secondly, this is what is more likely, and I want to note the framing that comes out of the LO here. If you don't give it your all, you don't love me. I think those are coercive structures that put people into very negative and harmful relationships. I think those structures, more dominantly than others, hurt women. I think that is what keep women confined. I think that is what keep women in harmful situationships and relationships that they cannot opt out of, because they are now being told that this is the only thing that you should prioritize, that these are the sacrifices you should always be making. Love is about installing and increasing agency, not decreasing agency. It's about consent, boundaries, and conscious opt-in. Those are acts of love. It is not telling them that I will do anything for you at any point, because that is a point at which women are constantly being taken advantage of. That is a point at which other patriarchal structures, the other narratives that they themselves concede exist, are the ones that play in even more so. Note, other narratives exist, LO is clear on this. Other narratives are telling you to do things for your partner, to be a good spouse, to be a good husband, to be a good man or a good father. That is not exclusive to their side. What they have to prove is literally the motion. Why is it justified to die for the people you love? I think we do a much better job at doing the opposite. Great. What is it then that Martha tells you? Why should you weigh this higher, and also higher than probably a sane case coming out of closing? First of all, we tell you why it's harmful, and the idea that this is an instant moment decision that you're always going to be pushed into. We tell you at the point at which you're under duress, it is societal narratives that kick in that tell you what you need to be doing. It is the societal narratives that are forcing you to make some sort of decision because you're so under duress, you have so limited agency in these negative situations. I don't know if I'll ever be in a situation where I have to jump in front of the car to save someone, but I know some people might be in those situations. I think those things are likely to happen to some extent, but even if it is 5 out of a million, I think we're fine debating those 5 out of the million. I think that's literally what the motion is asking us to do. I think for those people, you're taking one instant that is under duress, that is a very negative point in your life, and deciding the rest of your future, not just for yourself, but for all the people around you. I think it is the idea here that everyone else is fucked over, which is also true, even if we don't necessarily prove that you're going to die, but the idea that you're sacrificing yourself at the expense of others, at the expense of every other relationship in your life, that is a point at which you're making a trade-off that we cannot stand for an opening government. It is because this is the instability that is driving these actions. I want to note here that we could have framed love as being like a disease or something that is making you incapacitated and unable to make any sort of decisions. I think we're being quite graceful when we say that some love is good and some love is bad, but I think at the point at which any type of love is driving you to kill yourself for them or to die for someone else, that love is probably bad and is probably not a love that is doing good things for you in the future, right? I think at that point, that is to say then that we have worse love on our side of the house because that love is the one that takes over. Those are the kinds of love that we prioritize. Let's talk more about the people who are left behind. I think this is a winning case coming out of opening government. Everyone else is fucked over, and even if it is true that the narrative says, but it was a justified death, that justification makes it harder for you to angle your grief, makes it harder for you to understand where to put some sort of blame, makes it harder for you to process the feelings of loss, the feeling of disconnection from whoever abandoned you, right? Later. That is specifically to say that the people who are left behind, and note that those people are significantly more. So even if they do prove to you that you're a better spouse to one person, but you're a worse brother to all your siblings, a worse friend, a worse son, a worse debater, I don't know, whatever. More specifically, that is to say that even if they do prove their crazy impacts, on scale we should also win, on the idea that maximizing utility is significantly better on our side. Before moving on, closing.
Is there anything in the entire world that you could die for and it would be justified?
I think Martha answers this in the first 30 seconds. We're not talking about heroic deaths. These are still possible. You can still go into the military. We already answered this. Engage with what we're actually saying for once. Okay. Secondly, we told you about the instability of this. We told you why it is that these hormones are limiting your agency. We told you why grief processes are getting worse. Let's do a little bit more preemptive weighing in this sense, right? First of all, the idea of the long-term, short-term. I think we already explained to you that even if, and this is the best case of any opposition team, that this is an enactment of agency, and they prove to us that it is actually that you actually have some sort of capacity to enact this agency, that is a one-time agency enactment that doesn't live up to, on a utilitarian scale, all the other options of opting into agency that you're forfeiting when you're killing yourself. That is to say then that if we want to prove that this is the best way we could possibly live out our wishes, that is a one-time thing that happens on opposition. On our side of the house, you have the rest of your life to be to be a competent agent. Is that a word? ESL Finals. Cool. But more specifically then, on your proximity to others and why it is that you should weigh this higher, those proximate relations still matter to you, but you owe them more than the dependency you might have to your lovers' families or whatever, right? These are the people who grew up next to you, the people who gave you your life, that installed the values in you that you're trying to portray further, right? You owe these people significantly more than I owe my boyfriend's family, although I like them very much, but I don't necessarily owe them my life. I don't owe them more than I owe my own family. That is because of the dependencies that we have proved to each other, all the investments we have made into each other, for the way that we're able to harm each other. When I can inflict significantly more pain on one person than I can do on the other person, that is when I should be more careful about inflicting pain on the one person who I can hurt more deeply. I think for those reasons you should weigh these things more highly. I think it's very clear in this debate, right, that the thing we should care mostly about is whether or not people actually make good decisions, whether they make decisions that are worthy, whether we inspire good or bad love stories. I think we inspire better love stories when we tell you not everything is worth loving for, not everything is worth dying for. There are few things worth fighting for, and that's mostly yourself and your relationships towards others. For all these reasons, I think this is a clear OG.
Okay, just one point before I start my speech. I am so extremely privileged to stand here while some people don't have their beloved ones next to them. Bring them home. Unlike opening government, I'm not going to claim that I have epistemic access to how the A-team thinks. Unfortunately, notice, during this competition, the A-team gave a motion about soccer, but somehow there was a financial clash in it. We think that the A-team does not need to actually word the fact that there are other narratives and other messages in order for them to be in this debate. I'm going to do 4 very simple things in my speech. I'm going to explain how we win both on dying for your partner and how we've been on the actual narrative of the A-team. Then I'm going to talk about a better relationship and hurting women. All rebuttal will be integrated. Let's go. Because notice, what they're trying to claim that this debate is about sacrifice, right? But notice that we do think that you can talk about other things and just weigh it. Even if dying, that you guys believe that you need to take a bullet and you were in that case in your life, and if so, I'm sorry for triggering you. We think that those fringe cases are very small, right? Most of the cases are the cases that narrative impacts you differently. I'm going to talk about it in a second, but let's also answer dying for your partner just to make sure that we win that as well. Because we just don't accept that saying that something is very temporary and that it has big effects means that we do not need to do that. Notice, for most people, a piece of land is temporary, right? I can can just move to a different land. I can have my family being in a different place. But notice in 2024 that people care about pieces of land. People are willing to sacrifice their life for it because they think that their impact is very important. And the impact is not empirical, right? Not the amount of people that are going to be affected or the amount of different groups that are going to be affected, but the quality of that effect. If I know that the quality of my life and the quality of my family is going to be a lot more better, or if I know that I'm just going to be a lot more happier, people are willing to do that. So just asserting that something is temporarily is enough is just not enough in this debate. Furthermore, notice that we say that look at their analysis. They say people meet other people and they fall in love. And then there's hormones and other things that kick in. Notice that is symmetrical. On both sides of the house, we're going to have that hormones, right? So if somebody is going to be willing to take a bullet because there's something biological happening in his brain, it's going to happen on both sides of the house. At least on our side, families know that once people are doing that, they're doing that and they're happy about it because they're happy about sacrificing a lot of those things for their loved ones. Meaning if what they care about is the people they leave behind and they're outside of the house, they know that although I died happy. So if you're going to have those deaths anyway, I'm rather having my mother feel that at least I did it for somebody I cared about. But notice that they give no answers at all to what we say that would have happened on the comparative. They say, oh, at the comparative, people would just think differently. Notice what Boaz actually explains to you. Boaz explains to you specifically why other narratives would have kicked into those specific. The only response that we get is an actual POI from CO claiming that Boaz never explained why men will kind of internalize those specific things. I think that Boaz already gives to you a couple of crucial things, right? The fact that opening governments themselves assume that both genders do that. But second of all, notice a couple of more crucial things. The fact that it's in your life since you're a young child means that your family, friends, TV, everybody pushes that narrative on you. Granted, there are other narratives. Some said to me, you Israelis never explain how is it actually going to work. So let's talk about it. Because if you think of a narrative so hard and you think that women are just worthless, now notice that some other men are going to say, oh, but look, there's that narrative, meaning a discussion and a discourse is actually going to happen, something that we wouldn't get on the other way. Thirdly, notice that men, sorry for doing that, but I'm going to say it anyway, just likes women in many of the times. Why is it important? Because they want to be liked by women. And if women are going to internalize that because Titanic is a fucking good movie, if they want to approach women, they will want to do the same. We think there's a lot of reason why men internalize that thing specifically. And lastly, before I get into this clash, about the fact that the swaying that family, friends, and etc. are more important, notice that we also have it on our side of the house.
POI.
What do we prove to you? We prove to you that they have more happiness if they know that I died happy, but second of all, and this is most of the cases, they know that if I'm willing to sacrifice and do a lot of the things during my relationship, I'm just a better friend. Because notice, if my partner treats me right, supports me, letting me go to debate instead of being at home with him, expects me to be happy and to have my own career except for catering for their needs. This is where my friends get to see me more, right? Because then I'm willing and are able to see my friends more. And then I'm also a better friend because I feel more satisfied with myself and I can cater for their needs as well because I have the emotional capacity to think of other people and not just my partner in the narratives that would have existed if we only believe what OG themselves claim. So how exactly do we get better relationship and why is it so important? Before I do that, let's engage with closing.
Your very complex mechanism that men like women isn't enough because the narrative also tells men that women should be willing to give their lives up for them.
A good thing that I gave 4 other examples. Good luck engaging that. And second of all, notice what you support is only having that narrative. We support a discourse. Notice, panel, we do not need to convince you that 100% of the men are going to be convinced by that discourse. What we say that it's enough to even have 5 or 10 or 15% of people that are going to be better better off on our side of the house in order for this narrative to be enough to win this debate. Why better relationship is the most important thing in this debate? Because not notice, it's just logical prior. Once you feel like you can move to Italy because you have a boyfriend or girlfriend that you want to support, then you feel that you're never going to be alone. No matter what fucking crisis is happening in the world or in this debate final, you know that somebody is going to say, you're amazing and you looked beautiful, although you said shit, right? Not me, but other teams. Second of all, notice we just impact more people. Everybody has love. Everybody has relationship. Not everyone has a bullet that's waiting with their name. Thirdly, we just think that love impacts you on every given moment. You don't need to be at work. You don't need to be at debate. You know that you are loved at every fucking moment. We think because it just impacts more people and it impacts them all the time. If we prove to you that people just feel better and are better for their boyfriend, girlfriend, family, friends, and women are just better off, no reason to oppose this.
This extension will prove why this narrative is co-opted by the worst structures in society, because opening government is right that their case only applies to the fringe cases, and I do not think that opening opposition misread the motion. And the main thing that I will note is opening opposition is correct in the thing that you probably believe now, that other narratives will exist, and that running that this coerces women and whatnot doesn't prove to you 100% that this is the narrative that does it. But that is not our burden. Our burden is to prove to you that it potentializes those narratives in ways that our narratives do not. So there is a subset of individuals that wouldn't have been coerced, but that are coerced for this narrative, and for the individuals that would have been coerced for others are coerced in a worse way now. That is what you should burden us with. Before that, I actually want to give an extension that is probably less controversial regarding your read with emotion. And it is to note that in a good number of circumstances, this narrative coerces individuals to do things that they didn't want to, even in the fringe or non-fringe cases. This looks like, in many instances, the fact that this narrative, together with a narrative that overburdens men in many instances with having to do a lot for the family, tells men that they should have to sacrifice themselves in working particular hours, in going to war for their families, in literally just putting their bodies in front of their communities whenever they're in a war zone and are being invaded, for example. And in many instances, this means that you are fucking afraid, or that you do not want to do these types of things, but that the narrative says you are fundamentally failing your duty as a man if you do not do these types of things. I think what we tell men in many instances is we tell these individuals it is fine to also be afraid, and it is fine to have this discourse. You shouldn't have to take on extra burdens necessarily just by virtue of you being arbitrarily born in a particular position. The materialization of this, and this is also part of the extension, is that in a good number of circumstances what this means is there is a lot more discourse and there is a lot more discussion over who the braver person in the relationship is, who can take on particular burdens, who is actually willing because they consent to take on particular things. And the result of this in many instances is maybe no one within the community wants to sacrifice themselves. Maybe no one in the marriage wants to do it. But we would rather no one illegitimately just takes it. And we would rather people just die, but not as a result of something that is intrinsically pushed into them. So what happens with patriarchy and the main extension that we want to run? Look, you won't probably be in a sinking boat. But in most instances, there's going to be a point in your life as a woman where you grow old along with your partner. And what happens in the vast majority of the developing world is that even though your knees hurt too, even though you also have arthritis, and even though you are also suffering from profound physical pain, you have to become a caretaker. And the main thing that I would note here is the only mechanism you have on opening opposition is, in absence of this, men are kind of shit. At least now we tell them, you should give your life for your woman. Look, sure.
So notice that on your side, some people sacrifice their life. That's okay. The question is that most of the cases, where do families feel better when they're dying, but also throughout their life?
Okay, I think I will cover this in my extension, and I will flag when I will do. What happens with the thing that I was explaining is that in the majority of instances, men are socialized in a way where they see themselves a lot more selfishly. This is in a good number of circumstances, obviously different from the ones in the first extension, but I think this is the more substantial number of cases. I.e., the narrative works both ways. I think that I should be willing to give my life for my partner, but I also think, therefore, that my partner should be willing to give their life for me. And whenever you have been socialized to believe that the lives of men within the community are just intrinsically more worth it, or not even that, but just that you are more socially utile, for example, you have collectively built the economy, you have brought bread to the table, you have been told by all narratives that you are the reason your family can subsist, you do not believe that this narrative applies to you as equally, and that is the particular mechanism that beats opening opposition, because the implication of this narrative, therefore, is that you have more of an expectation than you do an incentive to act for your individual. And the result of this is that women become caretakers when they are like 60, when they are 70, when they are 50. I would rather these women ask themselves in many instances whether they are going to give up the 10 last years of their lives for a man that in many instances wasn't that grateful for all the things that they did, or just opt out of this marriage. Of course, this doesn't sound great. In many instances, this does mean that the man is in a worse off position. But since it is a trade-off, I think that you should at least have the right to say, and I think this narrative oftentimes coerces you because it is your religion telling you you have to do this. It is your family telling you that you have to do this. And the weird thing is, if opening opposition's narrative is that there is something profound to every human that makes them incentivized to sacrifice for others already, it is unclear why this narrative is also necessary. The only extra thing that this narrative does is to the individuals that weren't willing to do it and weren't finding profound pleasure, it gave them a fucking coercive reason to do it, which was otherwise you failed as a man or you failed as a woman. You failed as an intrinsic member of your community, of your familial structure. This also trickles down into individuals that have less power within a particular two people dynamic. So for example, if you're younger than your partner, no thank you. For example, if you're poorer than your partner, or if you are like a person of color and your partner isn't. In many instances, the materialization of this is that, number one, this is literally just true that some people that are on the highest, higher position of power do think that you owe a lot more to them because the reason why they are where they are is because they married you to begin with, and as a result, you're the one who should be giving up their life. But the other thing that I would note is this potentializes a lot of toxic dynamics. You should try drugs because shouldn't you be even willing to give up your life for me? And I would give you very comparative analysis, which is, look, when this narrative exists, a good number of people aren't gonna buy into it individually. They're gonna just have self-preservation mechanisms. But the mechanism for this is that because it is normalized for other individuals to give up their life, at least you in your particular relationship have more legitimacy to ask for other things. I.e., sure, you're not willing to give up your life for me or do as much for me, you should at least be able to do this, like this other thing that is more lower burden, and you have a lot more legitimacy in making those toxic demands. That is how that scale moves to be able to actually push for the narratives that they talk about. So right now you must be asking yourself still, won't these narratives exist anyways? And the answer is those narratives are a lot more legitimate and accepted in society whenever there is a higher order burden or higher order narrative that allows for individuals to be like, we are not gonna do this one, but we definitely will have to do another one. The thing that I would also note is, opening opposition essentially characterizes that individuals find profound pleasure in sacrificing for others. But I would ask you to question whether this is true. I think for a number of individuals, they are afraid and they have no incentive of actually doing this. But it is not socially okay to opt out of these roles, and this is profoundly painful for these people. Look, the burden that you're putting on the person that you sacrificed for is profoundly psychologically distressing. It means that they cannot actually talk about it with anyone because it seems like they shouldn't be the ones complaining because their partner already sacrificed for them. So this person ends themselves alone. This person finds themselves burdened instead of having a lot more discourse or just fucking dying together in the Titanic, which I think would have been better. Thank you.
Cool. Before I start, I'd like to thank the entire Zagreb delegation for being here. I would like to thank my wonderful partner, Jagoda. It's her first Euros, and she did better than anybody I know on their first Euros, and she has helped me reach on my far from first Euros, the ESL Finals. I would also like to thank everybody who supported me so much, primarily Tin, who's coached me through God knows what, and Lucy, who's helped me learn cases I could never do and been a support, and my girlfriend Brina, who's going to get mentioned in the speech a lot probably, for always being by my side and helping Zagreb be what Zagreb is. Now, let's Dinamo. Death is the most tangible thing a person can feel. It's the be-all, end-all of your existence. You know how everything feels, therefore you can imagine how nothing forever could feel. This is why you buy into narratives that counter death, that use death as a means of coercing you to do something or other. And know that all narratives are coercive to an extent. What's important in this debate is that there is counter-narratives that exist in society that are going to be pushed upon you at the point where this narrative does not exist, therefore we don't regret it. Note, romantic love is best love. If romantic love doesn't exist, other narratives exist. What are these narratives? They already exist in society. They're just going to become stronger at the point where there isn't a narrative of you sacrificing or dying for love. No, the opening opposition never have the link why dying for love means sacrificing for love. They just kind of imply that this link exists. What this link means is, at the point where you are being told that dying for romance is justified, that means you do not take it in as a negative in a calculus. Note, every time you make a decision, you run to the positives and the negatives of that decision in your head. The narrative saying death is justified in the cases for romantic love means that you don't see it as a negative in decisions. Therefore, you don't think that even if it were come to death, you think that would be fine. This looks like giving a kidney to your loved one. This is the difference between, if Rumen asked me to give him a kidney, I would not do it, even if it would be this debate, because dying on the operating table sounds very fucking bad. But if Brina asked me to do it, I would do it in a heartbeat, because if she dies, I will feel so much worse than if I die on the table. This also looks like prioritizing yourself, because note, moral duties are naturally cascading. At the point where they're cascading towards proximity, I have a higher duty to Brina than I have to Rumen. Given insofar as what happens to Brina impacts me to so much more, prioritizing her well-being and the way that she lives her life prioritizes my happiness as well. I have a higher duty to prioritize my own happiness than I have to prioritize the happiness of my girlfriend's sister or my cousin's uncle or whatever OG example you want to take. What does this mean? At the point where romantic love is best, there is a biological imperative that makes you love romantic love more than you love other things. It just simply gives you more endorphins to be with a person that you physically touch, the person that you kiss, the person that you spend probably the majority of your time with, more than with any of your other friends. This is why you internalize the narrative, because it's right to call out from OG that, never explain why internalizations happen, right? People want somebody to be willing to die for them, and so far they're willing to die for other people because they believe that this is what is required. Note that in the status quo, there are narratives of situationships where you're not quite either way, of like dating when you go on 2 dates, but like we're dating, but it's not serious, of toxicity found in every single interaction that you experience, of was this a red flag or was this a green flag? What the fuck is a beige flag? Who gives a shit? Just love people. Of things such as hookup culture, of like self-prioritization to the point where you're willing to hurt other people, but you go girl boss slay that, right? And you don't care what other people feel. To that extent, finding romantic love now is harder than it ever was before, to a point where these narratives are rampant, and the only thing keeping them even a little at bay is the narrative that it is justified to take the ultimate sacrifice for the people you love the most. Note that romantic love is achievable by people still, but this is the narrative that is making you want this, because you want to have the security of knowing that even if I needed a kidney, even if I need to be pulled out of a burning building, even if I was so old that I kept shitting myself in an old people's home, somebody would do it. Because if they're willing to die for me, they're also willing to do all of these things for me. This security is something that you will find increasingly hard to find. Therefore, the narrative that this is what love means is something that pushes you to strive for love, the best possible love that you can, romantic love. Before that opening,
Even if you feel justified in the moment of sacrifice, your girlfriend will live on with survivor's guilt. She will live on with intense loss and grief. Why is this justified for your good feeling when she will feel worse, when your family
Because she would
will
do the
feel
same
worse?
thing for me, very easily. She would do the same thing for me. And she knows that I would feel just as bad. So she's able to explain, fuck, I'm glad that I feel bad, but so he doesn't feel bad, right? It's a reciprocity of what we would have done, right? One of us had to do it. The line has to be somewhere. It just happened to be there. If she had the chance, she would do it the other way. And I would say this is perfectly legitimate. And I would praise her for it. Her family would praise her for it. They would say, yes, you're a hero because you did this. You're not an idiot. They have to look at me as family, not just instead of her. Sure, they feel bad, but they feel so much less bad, right? And note that opening government examples are not narrative points, right? Insofar as opening government has examples of jumping in front of a train or jumping in front of a bus, no narrative changes what you do that. This is purely on reflex. Your body reacts before your mind does. But insofar as these situations might happen, at the point where what's done is done, either I died for my partner or I didn't, their family has to live on somehow. They're much more able to live on when they believe that her death was justified in saving me than if they just say, she was an idiot with stupid reflexes, why the fuck would you jump in front of a car? Right. Moving on then, people can achieve love, right? There are people of the same societal status as you exist. There's dating apps around. There's onlineness where you can meet with people outside of your social circle. There's the body positivity movement. There's globalization, meaning we get more and more similar personalities. We all know the same memes, right? Road work ahead. See, we know similar things, meaning you are able to find people even if they're not immediately close to you. This means that you're able to find love, but you need to be motivated to look for it. You need to be motivated through the narratives that this is going to be something that is unique, and that it cannot be taken elsewhere. But also what changes is how you experience romantic love at the point where you're in it. Note, if something could kill me, I'm going to want to experience it fully. I really enjoy smoking, but like if something could kill you, right? You want to experience it fully because it's something that could be the be-all, end-all of your existence. It's something that could make sure that you don't exist anymore. It could, at any point, be the thing that sends you into an early grave, so it might as well be the best possible thing that it can be. This means that you self-actualize through romantic love every single day. You give them gifts, you kiss them on the head, you take them places. You know, if you've ever felt true love, the feeling of standing on a stupid street, somewhere unimportant, with a person who means the world to you, and you feel that this moment can last 10 lifetimes, because you're experiencing it more than you do the average thing that happens with the average day that just kind of passes by your brain. This means that you draw more meaning out of your life from being with this person. You make this love last longer than the time you have on this earth, because you make sure that you remember every single moment. You remember their mannerisms. You remember what it feels like to be with them. You take them places, you give them gifts, right? When closing government, I want to say, oh, but men are, but this is sexist. And opening opposition want to say, oh, but men and women are different, and there's different expectations. What you have to remember is that this is the only thing that is going to create the best possible emotion that you can feel. This is the narrative that is needed to make sure that you feel the best possible forms of love. For these reasons, proud to oppose.
I need to thank a few people before I start, because this is probably going to be my last major or main debate comp, even though I said that last year, but this is probably going to be the last one. First of all, I want to thank Ted Chiang. Unfortunately, he's not here. He's doing smart shit at Harvard. But thank you for making the last 3 years of debating university really memorable, really funny, and some of the most enjoyable years of my life. Secondly, Kira, thank you for being there with me for everything, talking about everything, and just being there as a person who listens to me every time I talk. Umar, you're the most principled person I know. You stand up for what you believe in, even if you're alone. I'm privileged to be your friend, and I'm privileged to assume that you think I'm your friend as well. Stefan, thank you for speaking with me for the last 2 years. you're a great debater. You need to back yourself, you need to be confident, and you will go everywhere you want to go. Matt and Ahmed, hopefully you're watching. Thank you for taking care of us as novices and for giving all the advice. Hopefully we can actually win a final, unlike you, but let's see. Ada, Arjun, Daniela, and everyone else from LSE Debating, thank you for making this debating year really enjoyable. Thank you for coming with me for every comp I went to, everywhere around the UK, because I don't have visa, and thank you for being there with me. Manuel, thank you for speaking with me and coming on this journey. I don't know how I would have done this without you. The final thing I want to say is that as a debating community, we talk about principles a lot. We talk about weighing vulnerable communities and talk about empathy and actually caring about them. And every single debate I've seen talks about this. They say that the most important in debate, they say that we need to care about them and weigh them as the most incredible and most important actor. But I don't generally think this manifests and materializes in how we treat each other. I don't think we actually listen to the struggles people have and actually respect those struggles and try to understand them. We don't have everyone's lived experiences. All we have is the friends we have and our ability to listen to them and try to understand them. Listen more, respect more, and I think as a debating community, we would be in a significantly better place. I don't think death is only tangible. Dying also entails destroying your individuality, making sacrifices that make you a person who you really aren't. This is what happens to most women in societies because their husbands and spouses forces them into boxes that they can't come out of in the name of sacrifice, in the name of dying and killing off their own identities for their greater relationships. The first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to talk about how this narrative actually manifests and why this uniquely harms the weaker people within relationships, specifically romantically, and weigh this off against top half. Secondly, I'll engage with bench as a whole and talk about the unique benefits they highlighted with regards to how this narrative manifests. And finally, I'll talk about why this just burdens so much people so much more. How does this narrative actually manifest? OO says this manifests equally with regards to both men and women. I don't know why this is the case. Both these individuals might be impacted, but I don't know why they're impacted in the same way. You can go and look at movies. The way sacrifices are applied for men are incredibly different the way they apply to women. The way men make sacrifices is by doing a good job, maybe working like more hours or making like working harder and so on. But that is not the same sacrifice that is put on women. It is about childcare. It is about sacrificing and staying at home and sacrificing their dreams of going and getting a job, sacrificing their dreams about what they want to do in the future and being independent. And if you look at any movie like about how these sacrifices manifest, that is what you would see in the first place, right? This means even if off-bench is correct, it's unclear as to why this uniquely manifests in the equal way. The structural reasons for this is very, very simple, right? One, in most cases, there are relationship asymmetries within relationships. One partner always has more power than the other because they may be the financial bearer of the relationship, right? They're the people who earn money in the relationship. So they're able to actually manifest that within the relationship, right? That means they're able to coerce them. But two, uniquely with regards to things like patriarchy, right? So you have other narratives that actually exemplify this and actually help people internalize these power asymmetries within these relationships, right? The reason why this is important is this uniquely harms the most vulnerable people within relationships who are able to who aren't able to actually access recourse and actually access things like individualism and their own identity. And I think this is also a way of dying, right? If you aren't who you are as a person and you're forced by society and you're forced by your relationship and your partner to kill yourself in the way of your own identity, I think that also entails dying. The second thing I want to respond to then is with regards to off-bench and off-bench's unique harms, right? Off-bench says, we make good things, we buy people gifts, we buy people who are in our relationships all we want and give them gifts and take care about them and make sacrifices. All of the reasons off-bench gives about things like endorphins and things about you caring about them means those benefits would have happened anyway. So it's unclear as to why the reason you love them and do good things for them is uniquely this narrative. Because there are other reasons why you would want to be and do those things. What then is incredibly comparative? There are some people who would want to sacrifice something for you because they love you and because they want to make that sacrifice. There are other people who wouldn't want to do that, and they're forced to do that because of this narrative, because the narrative tells you otherwise. This is where uniquely Manuel extends, right? The way this narrative manifests is your community alienates you. Your community says, you aren't a good partner. You aren't a person who actually loves your other partner because you haven't made this sacrifice. Your partner also guilt trips you. Why aren't you willing to make this sacrifice? The partner's parents guilt trip you as well, because all of these social pressures are the reason why those individuals are uniquely coerced into make decisions they don't want to do. That means a bench can have all their benefits. That is to say that they can have all their gifts, they can have all their good relationships and the people who care about their partners and help them. It is unclear as to why it is unique, because all the reasons that Bench talks about as to why you have love in relationships, as to why you care about your partner, means those benefits manifest independently. Our harm is unique to this narrative because the people who don't want to do things, don't want to make sacrifices, want some independence and want some individuality, can't do this anymore uniquely because of this coercive narrative, right? And I think this is the first thing I want to note here with regards to weighing against Bench. I want to weigh in against OG as well before I go on to the final thing about burdens. The first thing of weighing I want to do with regards to OG is I think OG only applies in fringe cases. They have given you no likelihood analysis as to why this manifests in a multiplicity of sentences. So they have made one case, like I really don't know how many people jump in front of buses for their partners. I genuinely don't know how likely this actually manifestation is. But our case manifests everywhere. It manifests in every relationship because there's always power asymmetries in every single relationship that exists. You never have equally dynamic relationship anywhere, right? But the second piece of weighing is that case about burdens, right? They say when your partner leaves you behind, you feel like you're hopeless. You feel like you can't actually move on. That is symmetric because someone's going to die anyway. So someone will have to move on and try to deal with grief anyway. So it's unclear as to why the harm about being burdened and having grief is an independent impact that only happens because of this narrative. Our impact is unique because only because of the existence of this narrative do you have powerful individuals within relationships exploiting it and utilizing this harm vulnerable communities. Yeah.
Your tipping point is non-existent. Women have been oppressed and forced much before the notion of romantic love. Only on our side we have discoursed men that are thought that they need to sacrifice for the woman and for the love.
Okay, this response doesn't work in debate, right? Just because women are oppressed doesn't mean we need to give other narratives and more reasons to go and oppress them, right? That is the unique extension we provide. When you force women to sacrifice their identities and individualism, that just puts more pressure on them because they feel like they're guilt-tripped to do this, right? They feel like this is the right thing to do. Their husband is sacrificing time to go and do a job. That means that I need to sacrifice my time and my dreams and my occupational dreams to take care of the children, to go and stay at home and do the housework, do all those things and not actually dream about going to university and going and doing the things I want to, right? The final piece of weighing I want to talk about with regards to OG is on intensity, right? After death, death happens, okay, might be intense, I don't really know what happens after that, the impact ends there. With regards to our impact, it is intense and manifests every single day. It is how you internalize these norms and how oppressive and coercive it is to you as an individual. Every time you feel like you want to go and join university or do something that your husband doesn't want you to do, you feel guilty. You feel like shit because you know that you're going against your obligations and your obligations are dying and sacrificing your own identity for this person. I just think this is an incredibly more intense impact that manifests every single scenario, in nearly every single day with regards to how these trade-offs work. The final thing is with regards to burdens, right? I think Manuel gives you a better explanation as to why this argument about burdens actually manifests with regards to how it materializes with regards to individuals who actually do sacrifice themselves. The explanation here is very, very simple, right? In most cases, these individuals now are burdened to actually go and do things that they wouldn't have otherwise wanted to do, and that in itself is a problematic thing and is incredibly coercive. At the end of this speech then, all I want you to weigh is very, very simple. A bench has benefits. Those benefits can be independently achieved through other narratives. The only unique thing with regards to this debate is about who is oppressed and who gives this ability of oppression to actually happen.
Before I start my speech, I just want to say a couple of thank yous because this is my first finals, guys. So I'm good time to say them. So firstly to my friends and family for supporting me, then to the institution of Zagreb, who became my new family ever since I moved away from home, especially to Vladimir and Emma, who support me literally to every situation in my life, then to Team Croatia, some members are here, and to my coaches from Team Croatia, then to Petar, and then to Teen. Teen, you're amazing, helpful, smart, and I'm so glad you were my coach. And also, last but not least, Đorđe Mirković. Panel. We are living in an epidemic of loneliness, which is caused by a culture of selfishness. We replaced warm homes, feeling of safety, security, and love with the narratives of girl bossing, red walking flags, and slaying solo life. In the end, we wake up in our rooms, lonely, believing we are unlovable and not able to love other people because of the narratives that exist. Our case centers in this context, and it's really simple, because we do 5 things. Firstly, we are telling you that there are counter narratives that push you from love, and that they exist on social media and are propagated by the modern culture. Second thing, we tell you that love is good for people because romantic love is unique from all other types of love. Thirdly, we tell you that this narrative about death specifically pushes people to overcome those narratives insofar that is something that is most tangible to us and we value more than anything else in life, meaning that the trade-off tips the scale and people are more likely to surpass the counter narratives. The fourth thing we do is we prove that people are able to achieve romantic love in the context of modern society, and then we also prove why we are better for scrutiny. Then in my speech, 3 things. Firstly, on closing government, then on opening government, then weighing over opening opposition. The first rebuttal against closing government is the way in which men interact with this narrative. I would like to say at the top of my speech that I do believe that the majority of their harms are symmetric. If you don't have the narratives about sacrifice, you have the narratives about motherhood, meaning that the woman is still, we still expect women to stay in their homes to look after the kids. If you don't have the motherhood, then you have the submissiveness of women who have to stay in their homes, who have to do what their men tell them to do. And then they say, but this is one more. But we also tell you, but this is one more that tips the scale for men to think that they maybe should treat their women better. I'm unsure as to what exclusivity they have. But secondly, note the other patriarchal standards, which we believe push men into opting into this also. The first one is that you're the hero, that you take the sacrifice on yourself. This is why Leo DiCaprio and not Rose, doesn't get to the door. I don't know, I didn't ever watch Titanic, I have to say. But secondly, also the idea of you having to carry the heavy burden, of you having to provide as a man. We believe that all of these narratives also counter-interact with this narrative and force men to opt into this. Secondly, we believe in their case about you being 50, 60, and 70 with your partner, and then women having to do sacrifice is unlikely. Why? Because even if we as the debaters like to portray men as always villainish, we would like to believe that after 40 years of marriage and living with that person and going through every emotional and big event in your life with that person, you sympathize with that person. You want to help them carry the heavy burden, thus we don't believe that the characterization is as radical. But secondly, what is our pushback to the point about agency, and why do we believe that their counter-narratives are coercive? Because firstly, they make you fear relationships. Insofar we prove to you that relationships are good, and counter-narratives lock that away from you because they tell you your boyfriend is going to be abusive, you're better on your own. If you opt into relationships, you're opting into the patriarchal system and you have no agency. This means that people are unlikely to opt into them. But secondly, this also glorifies alternatives without portraying the bad side of them. This glorifies hookup culture in which women are asymmetrically psychologically harmed. This allows men easier access to women even if it harms them. But also secondly, this is another extension of extortion of women insofar their analysis about men being those who propagate those narratives is true, which means that their alternatives are also likely propagated by men and also likely harm women. But secondly, even if we take them at their highest and we say that some people actually do enter abusive relationships or bad relationships, we believe that it is easier to leave a bad relationship, to find another partner, to get therapy, than it is to reconcile with yourself when you're 50, 60, 70, while you're still alone. But now let's go to opening government. Firstly, opening government has significant analytical gaps. How is this narrative propagated? Why do people opt into this? What is their scale of impact? But fourthly, and most importantly, this is the biggest attack on OG, they have symmetric impact. Because opening government tells you 2 things. The first thing they tell you is, oh, but people are sad because you died, and your family is sad. Insofar, you're not the one that the car hits, but the other person is hit by the car. I suppose that that person dies, their family is sad, and their friends are mourning. The second thing they tell you then is it's the active choice. We flip that, and I think Petar does that nicely. Because 2 things. Firstly, if your family is already mourning, what is the scale of impact here? But secondly, insofar there is a narrative of you being a hero because you died for love, and you sacrifice yourself, then at the last moment of your life, your family family can say they died like a hero, they died justifiably, and they are a good person in the end. But secondly, we believe that their idea about agency and people being coerced into making these choices like in the moment is not true or not exclusive at best. Why? Because firstly, we make emotional decisions all the time. Who we vote for, who we hang out with, which jobs we do. It is all influenced by our emotions, and we don't believe that this is the only coercive decision we make in our life, nor that emotion is the metric of coercivity. But the second thing is, insofar people see that love is valuable to them, insofar people feel better at every point in their life because they know that someone is waiting for them at home, we think this is a trade-off which is worthy making. But now let's talk about abusive relationship, and let's deal with the deadlock happening on the opening half. Because opening government tells you, oh, you're likely to enter abusive relationship because you're sacrificing yourself, and then opening opposition tells you, no, this will impact men. Firstly, we believe that other teams calling out opening opposition because of their lack of analysis is true. But the second thing we believe is also true is that we solve this in two ways. The first one is our frame of the debate, because insofar our counter-narratives that exist are true, this means that people are also wary of the relationships. When they enter the relationships, they keep in mind that some are toxic, some are abusive, some men ain't shit, and they know that before they enter those relationships and are more careful when they are selecting. Before going on to the second opening.
The justification of a sacrifice isn't comforting. It's coercive and it forces you by not allowing you your pain of loss and rejection. The best case on CEO is 1 or 2 people feel good. That doesn't weigh against the magnitude that would bring you on everyone else.
No, other narratives are also coercive, because other narratives tell you are going to be harmed if you try to engage with someone and enter a relationship with someone, which makes you afraid, which is by definition coercive, which means that people on their side of the house are not likely to opt into romantic relationships. But the second way in which we solve the deadlock on abusive relationship, because Peter explains to you why we have better relationships. I explained to you why men opt into this, which is something opening opposition didn't do, but also know that there is scrutiny. Because insofar we believe everyone's love should be selfless, and we see someone acting selfish, we are more likely to call them out, which means that we are not contingent on people changing on their own. If they are bad, we are contingent on other people changing them and calling them out. So what is the weighing of our case over opening opposition but all other teams? Firstly, know that this is the most intense impact. To which degree men will change, we don't know, because they have the power within society. But we believe that on our side, we are able to prove a couple of things. Firstly, that an epidemic of loneliness exists and that it's bad. But secondly, that this is mental in the heads of people. Insofar we are able to portray to people that romantic love is worthy, and they don't have to be afraid of so many things, and that there is a worthy trade-off, we believe that more people are likely to enter. Why is this intensive? Because romantic love offers you safety every day. You have someone in the biggest and the lowest moments of your life. You have someone who thinks of you in every single moment, and you think of them. This is amazing for people. So proud to oppose.